Okay, welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're digging into your sources, some really interesting stuff from Embrapa, Brazil's big agricultural research body, and also a sommelier's take, all focused on one grape, BRS Cora.
That's right. And these documents, they really lay the groundwork for understanding this variety. It's basically a direct answer to the unique challenges of growing grapes in Brazil.
Yeah, so our mission today is to unpack it all, right? Where it came from, what makes it tick, how you grow it, the wine potential, and where it's headed. Because this isn't just, any grape.
No, it's a fantastic example of focused research tackling climate challenges head-on for winemaking.
It's all about breeding for toughness, for flavor, in places where the usual suspects might struggle.
Exactly. So, yeah, let's get into this really innovative Brazilian grape.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning, the origin story. Why BRS Cora? What was the problem they were trying to solve?
Well, the sources really point to one main thing. Brazil's climate, especially in those warmer, more humid areas, is tough on grapevines. Fungal diseases are a huge issue.
Right, all that warmth and moisture, perfect breeding ground for mildew, rot, that kind of thing.
Precisely. Makes growing the classic European Vitis vinifera grapes, the Cabernets, the Chardonnays, incredibly difficult. You need constant spraying, constant intervention.
So Embrapa stepped in.
Yeah, Embrapa Uva e Vinho, their grape and wine center, saw this problem decades ago. They started a genetic improvement program way back in the 1980s.
Wow, the 80s.
The goal was clear: develop new grape varieties specifically built for Brazil's diverse and often pretty tricky growing conditions.
And BRS Cora came out of that program. What's its parentage?
It's what we call an interspecific hybrid, so it's a
Okay.
cross. Specifically, it's between BRS Lorena, that's another Embrapa hybrid, a white grape known for good resistance and some interesting aromatics,
Okay.
and another experimental line, CNPUV 149456. That one also brought resistance traits and potential for white and rosé wines.
So they were really deliberate about it, picking parents with specific characteristics they wanted.
Absolutely. It wasn't just random crossing.
Yeah.
The goal was to stack the deck. Get high disease resistance, good vigor, good productivity, and make sure it actually had the chops to make decent wine, breeding with purpose.
And it was officially launched in 2012, after a lot of testing, I assume.
That's right. Took years of trials in different locations, different microclimates to really prove it could perform.
What strikes me here is the reason for all this work. For you listening, this isn't just some abstract science project. It's about making it possible to grow quality grapes, maybe with fewer chemicals, in places where it used to be incredibly hard. It's science tackling real-world farming challenges. Okay, let's get down to brass tacks. What does the BRS Cora vine actually look like? Can you paint us a picture?
Ampelography, right?
Sure. So in the vineyard, BRS Cora usually shows medium to high vigor. It's a pretty sturdy plant.
Grows strongly.
Yeah. The leaves, medium to large, typically five-sided, pentagonal with clear lobes, nice medium green color. And the shoots, the branches, they're vigorous, well-developed, supports the growth well. And the grapes themselves, the bunches?
Bunches are medium to large, usually cone-shaped, and they can be fairly compact or moderately so. The berries themselves are medium-sized, nice and round. Skin's usually green-yellow, but it gets this lovely golden tint where it catches the sun. And the skin's medium thickness, which is actually pretty useful. Gives it some physical protection, helps against pathogens too.
What about the inside, the pulp?
The pulp's juicy. Tasting the raw berry, the flavor's described as, well, simple. But here's the key bit. It consistently has a good balance between sugars and acidity.
Right, and that balance is everything for wine, isn't it?
Absolutely critical. You need that natural balance as the starting point for making a well-structured quality wine. Got the raw materials.
Okay, so the simple taste isn't a negative, it's the balance that counts. How long does it take to grow, its cycle?
It's got an early to medium vegetative cycle. Basically, it ripens relatively quickly compared to a lot of the classic wine grapes.
Ripening quickly. Sounds like that could be useful strategically.
Oh, definitely. Think about regions with shorter growing seasons, or places where you might get problematic rains or disease pressure late in the year. Being able to harvest earlier lets you pick the grapes at their best, dodging those potential issues.
Makes sense.
Which is why monitoring its phenology, tracking those growth stages like bud break, flowering, veraison, it's so important. You have to do it carefully in each region to really nail the perfect harvest time.
Okay, and now the headline feature. That disease resistance, just how tough is it?
This is probably his biggest selling point, The result of all that targeted breeding, it shows really good resistance to the main fungal headaches in Brazil. downy mildew, powdery mildew, gray rot, even acid rot.
Wow, that's quite a list to be resistant to.
It is, and the practical implications are huge.
Wow.
For the grape grower, it means they can drastically cut down on fungicide sprays.
Which
Well, think about it. More sustainable farming, right? Less impact on the environment, potentially fewer chemical residues ending up in the wine, and of course, lower production costs to the farmer. Plus, it maintains good vigor and produces well, even when conditions are tough on other varieties.
So the big takeaway for you, the listener, is that this grape is fundamentally designed to thrive without needing a constant barrage of chemicals. It really opens the door to a more sustainable, maybe cleaner way of growing grapes, even in difficult climates. All right, so you've got this vigorous, resistant vine, but just letting it grow wild won't give you great wine, right? How do growers actually manage it in the vineyard to get quality fruit? What are the key techniques?
Yeah, exactly. Even with all its natural advantages, you still need careful vineyard management. Site selection, for instance, still matters. You want good sun exposure for ripening, obviously, and well-drained soils are crucial, especially in humid spots, to avoid root problems.
And prepping the soil itself.
Oh, fundamental, especially if you've got heavy clay soils. Things like subsoiling to break up compacted layers, maybe ridging to help drainage. Then there's the usual soil analysis, correcting the pH if needed, maybe adding lime if it's too acidic. And building up organic matter is key.
How do they do that?
Compost, manure, planting cover crops. It all helps improve the soil structure, helps it hold water better, provides nutrients, and feeds the soil microbes. Healthy soil, healthy vine.
The sources mention different ways to train the vines, like Spalier and Perel. Is Cora adaptable there?
It seems to be pretty versatile. Espalier, that's the common vertical trellis system you see in many fine wine regions, works well. It gives good sun exposure, good air circulation around the grapes, which helps cut down fungal risk. You can use different pruning methods on it, like guyot or cordon royal.
And the other one, Perel. That's the overhead pergola style.
Exactly. You see that more often in really hot, sunny regions. The canopy provides some natural shade for the bunches, which is great for preventing sunburn and preserving that all-important acidity in the grapes. It also allows good airflow underneath. So, yeah, the choice really depends on the specific site and what the grower is aiming for.
Okay, then there's managing all the green leafy growth during the season, pruning and canopy management. How do they handle that with BRS Cora?
Pruning is essential. It's how you control the vine's growth, manage its vigor, and, most importantly, decide how many grape bunches it's going to ripen.
Setting the yield potential.
Precisely. The aim is always to find that sweet spot, that balance, so the vine can focus its energy on ripening fewer bunches really well. Better sugars, better aromas, better acidity. It adapts well to different pruning styles like guyot or spur pruning like cordon espernado. Timing and how severely you prune depend on the vine's strengths, the climate that year, and your quality targets.
And fiddling with the leaves and shoots during summer.
Yeah, canopy management. That's all about creating the perfect little microclimate right around the grape bunches. Things like leaf removal, especially on the shadier side, lets more sun in, helps with ripening, and crucially improves air circulation. Less humidity means less disease risk.
Makes sense.
They might also trim the tops of the shoots, called topping to control vigor, and let more light penetrate the canopy. Positioning these shoots neatly on the wires, sometimes even removing whole bunches if there are too many. It's all part of dialing in that balance for optimal quality.
And water, nutrients.
Irrigation might be needed, especially in dry spells or on soils that drain really fast. You have to monitor the soil moisture carefully. You don't want the vine stressed from lack of water, but you don't want them waterlogged either, and fertigation is common. Applying dissolved fertilizers directly through the irrigation system. It's very precise, allows you to give the vines exactly the nutrients they need when they need them, based on soil tests and even analyzing the leaves. So you put it all together, the grape's built-in resilience, plus this kind of precise science-informed farming.
And you end up with a much more efficient, cost-effective, and ultimately more sustainable way to grow high-quality grapes, particularly in Brazil's conditions. It's like taking the grapes' natural gifts and really maximizing them with smart viticulture. All right, vineyard work done, grapes harvested. Now we move into the winery. What's the potential for BRS Cora when it comes to the actual wine?
Your sources are pretty consistent here. It's really well suited for making versatile white and rosé wines. And the standout feature seems to be a really unique, quite captivating aromatic profile.
Okay, let's talk about that profile. If you pour a glass, what do you smell? What do you taste?
It tends to have a pretty intense, inviting nose. Fruit notes are usually prominent. You often get vibrant white fruit. Think crisp green apple, maybe some juicy pear. bright citrus notes too, like lemon or lime. And here's the interesting part. Often exotic tropical fruit notes pop up.
Like what?
Passion fruit is mentioned quite a bit, sometimes pineapple, especially when the wine is young and fresh.
Passion fruit. Now that's distinctive. You don't hear that every day in standard white wines. Really sets it apart, doesn't it?
It really does. It gives it a signature character. Alongside that fruit, you often find subtle floral notes. Think white flowers, acacia, maybe jasmine, sometimes a touch of honeysuckle.
Any other layers to look for? Spices? Herbs?
Yeah, sometimes you can pick up subtle spicy hints, maybe like white pepper, and occasionally some discreet herbaceous notes in the background. They just add a bit more complexity behind the main fruit and flowers.
And you mentioned versatility. What styles does it excel in?
It shines in a few ways. First, as a dry, aromatic white wine. Typically, these see very little, if any, skin contact during winemaking, and they're usually fermented and aged in stainless steel, no oak generally. The idea is to keep them light, fresh, vibrant. They have balanced acidity, really bursting with those fruit and floral aromas, designed to be drunk young and cool, which sounds perfect for the Brazilian climate, right?
Absolutely. And rosés.
It makes lovely, light, fruity rosés, too. They get their color anywhere from a pale pink to a deeper salmon from just a very short time soaking on the grape skins before fermentation. Maybe just a few hours.
Right, just for color extraction.
Exactly. Aromatically, they tend to show really intense, fresh red fruit notes. Strawberry, raspberry, cherry, often layered with those floral hints again. Refreshing acidity, light body, very fruity. Again, great for warm weather, light food.
And the sommelier analysis hinted at sparkling wine potential as well.
Definitely. Its natural acidity and that really appealing aromatic profile make it a very promising candidate for sparkling wine production. Could be done using the Charmat method, tank fermentation, or the traditional bottle fermentation method.
What would you expect from a BRS Cora sparkling?
Probably something with captivating freshness, lively acidity, fine bubbles, and that characteristic blend of white fruit, citrus, floral, maybe with that hint of tropical fruit adding intrigue.
How important is the actual wine-making process in capturing these aromas? Are they delicate?
Oh, absolutely crucial. Temperature control during fermentation is paramount. Keeping it cool, say, between 15 and 18 degrees Celsius for the whites and rosés is key. If it gets too warm, you can lose those delicate volatile aroma compounds.
They just evaporate off.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Using stainless steel for aging also helps preserve that purity and vibrancy. Oak aging would likely just mask the grape's unique character. And for the rosés, getting that skin contact time just right is critical for the color and avoiding unwanted bitterness.
So the whole cellar process is geared towards protecting that unique signature, the passion fruit, the jasmine, the citrus, carefully translating the grape's potential into the glass. Okay, let's dive a bit deeper into those cellar steps mentioned in your sources. What's the typical process flow to get that freshness and aroma?
Well, the overarching goal, right, is to preserve that lightness, that freshness, that aromatic intensity the grape offers. At the same time, you want to minimize anything unwanted, like harsh tannins, especially in the white wines, and be really precise about color extraction for the rosés.
So walk us through it. Grapes arrive at the winery. What happens first?
Okay, grapes come in. First step is usually destemming, getting the berries off the stems, then gentle crushing. You just want to break the skins to release the juice, not pulverize everything. That's followed by gentle pressing.
Why gentle?
Especially for whites and rosés, you want to avoid extracting too many phenolic compounds, the things that can make a wine bitter or astringent from the skins and seeds. Gentle handling means higher quality, cleaner juice, or must.
Purity from the start. Got it.
Absolutely. After pressing, the must needs clarification, often done by static cold decantation. Basically, you chill the juice way down and just let it sit. The solids, tiny bits of skin, pulp, seeds, gradually settle to the bottom. Then you rack the clear juice off the top.
So like letting muddy water settle out?
Kind of, yeah. It ensures the final wine will be clear and helps preserve the purity of the flavors. Sometimes gentle fining agents might be used to help things along.
And for the rosés, you mentioned that skin contact.
Right. For rosés, before fermentation starts, the juice is left in contact with the skins for a short time. Could be just 2 hours, could be 6 or 8. Depends on the grapes and the desired color intensity. It's carefully monitored because you only want the color pigments, not the tannins. Then the skins are removed and you proceed with the pink juice.
Okay, then fermentation begins.
Usually in stainless steel tanks. Again, steel is preferred because it's neutral, it doesn't impart any flavor, preserves that primary fruit character.
Yep.
And temperature control here is absolutely critical.
Keeping it cool, you said.
Yes, typically around 15 to 18 degrees Celsius, maybe even a bit cooler for very aromatic styles. This slow, cool fermentation is vital for developing and retaining those delicate, volatile aromatic esters, the compounds responsible for fruity and floral smells. Too hot, and they just vanish.
Do winemakers use specific yeasts?
Often, yes. Selected commercial yeast strains are common. They give reliable fermentation and can even be chosen to help enhance certain desired aromas. Some might experiment with native yeast from the vineyard for complexity, but that takes more careful management.
And once fermentation is done, how is the wine aged?
For BRS Cora, overwhelmingly, it's aged briefly in stainless steel tanks. The focus is entirely on preserving freshness and those primary aromas. You almost never see long aging in oak barrels, as that oak character would just dominate the grape's delicate nature.
So it's meant to be drunk young and fresh.
Generally, yes. There might be a short period of bottle aging before release, but these aren't wines typically designed for long cellaring. Their appeal is in their vibrancy and youthfulness.
So protecting those fragile aromas is the name of the game throughout.
Exactly. Things like careful use of sulfur dioxide to prevent oxidation, rigorous hygiene in the winery, all play a part alongside that crucial temperature control. It's all about ensuring what the vineyard delivered makes it safely into the bottle.
And you mentioned the grape's natural acidity earlier.
Yes, and that's key too. BRS Cora tends to have good, balanced natural acidity. The winemaking aims to preserve that because it's the backbone of the wine. It provides the freshness, the liveliness, the structure on the palate.
Okay, let's pull back from the cellar and look at the map again. Where is BRS Cora actually thriving in Brazil? Is it just stuck in one traditional wine area?
No, not at all. And that's one of its most exciting aspects, its adaptability. It's really moving beyond the traditional southern regions.
So where are some key places mentioned in your source materials?
Well, a really important, almost pioneering region is the Val do São Francisco, way up in the northeast. This is a hot, semi-arid climate, totally different from the south.
How does it grow there?
Through irrigation and really smart vineyard management, they've made it work incredibly well. They can even get up to 2 harvests a year there, which is wild. BRS Cora has adapted remarkably well to the heat and sunshine, producing wines with intense fruit and good color. It's become a real hub for showing off the grape's resilience.
2 harvests a year, that's amazing. Where else is it significant?
Well, it's also found its place in the Serra in Rio Grande do Sul, which is Brazil's traditional wine heartland. There, its big advantage is that disease resistance, which is super valuable in that humid subtropical climate. It adds diversity to their offerings. And it's showing real promise in the southeast region to states like Minas Gerais, São Paulo, especially in higher altitude areas. Growers there are using techniques like double pruning to shift the ripening period into the drier winter months. The wines from there are showing great freshness and their own unique character.
So it really does seem to have this chameleon-like quality, adapting to different places.
It really seems to. It performs consistently well across these vastly different terroirs, different climates, soils, altitudes. That flexibility is a massive asset for Brazilian viticulture, opening up new frontiers for quality wine. And Embrapa is still evaluating it in other potential areas too.
Are wineries actively making and selling BRS Cora wines now? Is it commercially established?
Oh, yes, definitely. You have wineries, particularly in the Vale de São Francisco and the Serra, really championing it. They often work closely with Embrapa, showcasing its potential for producing excellent, marketable wines.
So it's not just an experiment anymore. It's out there, being grown and vinified, creating exciting wines in really diverse parts of Brazil. Right, back to the experience in the glass. Let's focus on tasting these wines. The sommelier analysis you shared mentioned lightness, freshness, pleasantness, a touch of the exotic.
Yeah, those are great starting points. Let's try and put some more specific tasting notes to those styles based on what the sources suggest.
Okay, starting with the white wines, what should someone expect?
Typically, a BRS Cora white will be a pale straw yellow color. The nose is usually very aromatic. You'll likely get those vibrant tropical notes, passion fruit, maybe pineapple alongside citrus like lemon or lime, and those lovely white floral aromas, jasmine perhaps.
And on the palate.
Almost always dry, characterized by bright, refreshing, really well-balanced acidity. The body is generally light to medium, and the finish tends to be fruity and clean, quite persistent. Best enjoyed young, definitely chilled, say, 8 to 10 degrees Celsius.
Okay, and the rosés?
The color can vary a bit from a very pale pink, almost onion skin, to a brighter cherry or salmon pink. Aromatically expect vivid, fresh red fruits. Strawberry, raspberry, maybe some cherry, often with those subtle floral undertones again.
Taste.
Again, refreshing acidity is key. They're light-bodied, very fruity, just really pleasant and easy drinking. Perfect summer sipping wine, really. Serve them cool, too. Same range, 8 to 10 degrees C.
And you mentioned sparkling potential. What would that profile likely be?
Based on its characteristics, you'd anticipate something really fresh and lively. Vibrant acidity, fine bubbles, and that aromatic mix carrying through white fruits, citrus, floral, and that unique tropical hint. For sparkling, you'd serve it even colder, maybe 6 to 8 degrees C.
Your sommelier source also gave some practical tips for tasting and appreciating them.
Yeah, beyond the temperature, glassware makes a difference.
Mm-hmm.
A medium-sized white wine glass, like one you might use for Riesling or Sauvignon Blanc, is good for the still wines. Flute or tulip glass for sparkling, naturally. And they suggest taking a moment to look at the color, the clarity, then really spend time smelling it to swirl the glass. Try to pick out those different fruit, floral, citrus notes. On the palate, focus on that acidity, the lightness, how long the fruity finish lasts. Really, the key is to appreciate their freshness and versatility. They're not meant to be heavy, complex wines, but vibrant, enjoyable ones.
So this is your roadmap for tasting BRS Cora. When you get a chance, which of those aromas, the passion fruit, the jasmine, the strawberry, sounds most intriguing for you to try and find in the glass? And if you do have that glass, what food goes well with it? The sources really stress its versatility.
They do, and it makes sense given the wine's style. That freshness, lightness, and those delicate aromatics make it a really good partner for a lot of foods, especially lighter, fresher styles of cooking. It seems like a natural fit for much of Brazilian cuisine itself.
So what specific pairings were suggested?
Salads came up a lot. Fresh green salads, grain-based salads like quinoa or couscous with lots of veggies, herbs, maybe some grilled chicken or shrimp, even grilled vegetable salads. The wine's acidity just cuts through dressings beautifully and complements the fresh flavors.
Seafood sounds like a no-brainer.
Absolutely. Seafood and delicate fish are classic pairings. Think shrimp, mussels, scallops, fresh oysters, the wine. It's a great palate cleanser. Light white fish, tilapia, sea bass. Hake prepared simply, like steamed or grilled, especially with herbs or citrusy sauces that echo the wine's notes, would be perfect.
And that slightly surprising one, Japanese food.
Yeah, it actually makes sense. The clean acidity and freshness of a BRS Cora white can work really well with sushi and sashimi, cleansing the palate between the fish and rice. Other delicate Japanese dishes, like light tempura or clear soups, could also pair nicely.
How about vegetarian options?
For sure, things like grilled or roasted vegetables, zucchini, eggplant, bell peppers would be great. The wine's freshness really enhances the natural sweetness and flavor of the veggies.
Any more adventurous pairings mentioned in the sources?
Some suggested trying it with lighter versions of traditional dishes, like maybe a light moqueca, especially with the rosé to handle a bit more richness. Pizzas with fresh toppings, arugula, cherry tomatoes, mushrooms, lighter cheeses. Even some light aromatic Asian dishes, like Vietnamese food with its emphasis on herbs and citrus.
The recurring theme seems to be lightness and freshness.
Exactly. The main thing is to avoid overwhelming it. You wouldn't pair it with a heavy steak or a rich creamy sauce. It would just get lost. You want dishes that let the wine's delicate character shine through.
So next time you're planning a meal, especially if it's warmer weather or you're thinking lighter fare salads, seafood, grilled veggies, consider how a crisp BRS Cora white or rosé might fit. Sounds like a really refreshing match.
Okay, we've followed the Grape from its scientific creation through the vineyard, the winery, the glass, and the dinner table. What's next for BRS Cora? Embrapa's work isn't done, according to your sources.
No, definitely not. It's very much an ongoing story, and Embrapa is still actively researching and refining things to push BRS Cora's potential even further. What sort of things are they looking into for the future?
Well, one major area is selecting superior clones. This means identifying individual vines within the BRS Cora population that show truly exceptional traits.
Like what kind of traits?
Maybe even more complex or intense aromas, maybe better acidity retention in specific hot conditions, maybe slightly different disease resistance profiles, or just adapting exceptionally well to a particular soil type or microclimate. Once they find these star performers, they propagate them vegetatively to create superior clones for new vineyards, aiming for incremental quality gains.
So finding the best of the best within the existing variety.
Precisely. They're also doing more adaptation studies, basically more detailed research digging into exactly how BRS Cora performs across an even wider range of Brazilian terroirs, climate, soil, altitude combinations, trying to really pinpoint the ideal locations for specific wine styles.
And refining the winemaking process, too.
Yes, absolutely. They're continuously working on optimized vinification protocols, running experiments in the winery to tweak things. fermentation temperatures, different yeast strains, maybe short aging regimes, to figure out the absolute best way to express the grape's potential for different target styles, whether it's that crisp young white, a delicate rosé, or maybe even more focus on sparkling.
What about bigger picture issues like climate change?
That's definitely on their radar. They're researching how BRS Cora might respond to predicted changes, hotter temperatures, different rainfall patterns, leveraging its natural resilience, and developing sustainable vineyard management practices specifically for BRS Cora to help it cope and optimize resource use, reducing the environmental footprint further.
And finally, getting all this information out there.
Critically important, Embrapa plays a huge role in technology transfer and producer support, making sure all this research and knowledge actually reaches the growers and winemakers through publications, training programs, technical advice, helping them succeed with the variety.
So it's clear this isn't a static achievement. It's a dynamic, ongoing project aimed at making BRS Cora an even stronger contributor to Brazilian wine long into the future. So wrapping this all up, BRS Cora really does emerge as a major piece of innovation for Brazilian wine, doesn't it? A purpose-built hybrid designed for resilience, for adaptability in Brazil's unique conditions.
Absolutely.
Well,
And the result is these unique, good quality white and rosé wines with that really distinct aromatic profile, fresh, flavorful, really well suited to the climate and the palate there.
yeah, its role in diversifying what Brazil offers, adding value, seems undeniable. And I like the sommelier's perspective, seeing it as embodying innovation, adaptation, even a kind of Brazilian identity in wine. Its future seems bright, both in Brazil and maybe even beyond.
You know, a final thought for you, the listener, to maybe chew on.
Yeah.
Consider what it means to have a grape variety specifically engineered for its environment, bred to succeed in challenging local conditions, like Brazil's humidity. Does this represent a different kind of model for viticulture globally, especially as climates change everywhere? Could focusing on developing and embracing these kinds of adapted, resilient hybrids become more important, offering exciting alternatives to the classic varieties in places we don't normally associate with wine? What does BRS Cora maybe tell us about the future relationship between wine, the place it's grown, and human ingenuity?
That's a fascinating question to ponder. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of the BRS Cora grape.